Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, looking out at the strange new world below. The planet was nothing like Earth. Its surface glowed with soft blue and purple lights that moved like water across the land. 3 moons hung in the dark sky above it, each one a different color. "We're getting close, Captain," said Lisa Harper from her seat at the communications desk. She was the best at talking to aliens that the Earth government had ever trained. Her fingers moved quickly over the control buttons as she checked the translation machines one more time. Jake nodded and walked over to where Ryan Cole stood near the weapons controls. Ryan was a big man with strong arms and careful eyes. He was in charge of keeping everyone safe on the ship. "Any problems down there?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet, sir," Ryan said. "But those energy readings are unlike anything we've seen before. The whole moon is putting out some kind of power field." Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her science station. She was young but very smart about alien life forms. "The readings match what we expected from the Velthari," she said. "They seem to be made of living energy, not solid matter like us." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. After years of traveling through space and finding empty planets, they had finally found intelligent life. The Velthari had sent signals to Earth asking for a meeting. Now the USS Horizon was the first human ship to visit another thinking species. "Take us down slowly," Jake ordered. "Remember, we're here to make friends, not to fight." The ship moved through the thin atmosphere toward the crystal moon called Velthara. As they got closer, Jake could see tall buildings that looked like they were made of glass and light. Beautiful bridges connected floating platforms high above the ground. Everything seemed to glow with its own inner fire. "Captain, we're getting a message," Lisa said. She put her hand to her earpiece and listened carefully. "They want us to land at the main city. Someone important wants to meet us." "Good," Jake said. "That's what we came here for." The USS Horizon landed on a platform made of smooth, clear crystal. Outside the windows, Jake could see figures moving toward their ship. The Velthari were tall and thin, with bodies that seemed to be made of flowing light. They wore clothes that looked like liquid metal, and their faces were beautiful but very different from human faces. "Remember the plan," Jake said to his team. "We smile, we're polite, and we don't touch anything, unless they say it's okay. Lisa, you do most of the talking. Ryan, stay alert but don't look threatening. Amy, watch and learn everything you can." They put on their best uniforms and walked to the ship's exit. The door opened with a soft sound, and Jake stepped out onto the alien world for the first time. The air smelled like flowers and electricity. The ground under his feet felt warm, even through his boots. A group of Velthari moved forward to meet them. At the front was someone who was clearly very important. She was taller than the others, and her light body shone brighter. The metal dress she wore had jewels that sparkled like stars. When she spoke, a small device around her neck changed her words into English. "Welcome, humans from Earth," she said in a voice that sounded like music. "I am Princess Zarathis, daughter of the High Resonance and heir to the Crystal Throne. I speak for my people in greeting you." Jake stepped forward and tried to remember all the diplomatic training he had received. "Thank you, Princess Zarathis. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Command. We are honored to meet you and your people." The princess looked at him with eyes that seemed to change color like the northern lights. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I have many questions about your species. But first, please, come with us to the palace. You must be tired from your long journey." As they walked through the Crystal City, Jake noticed something strange. The other Velthari they passed all looked very similar to each other. They moved in the same way and had the same expressions on their faces. Only Princess Zarathis seemed different. She looked around at things with curiosity, and she asked questions that the others didn't ask. "Tell me, Captain," she said as they walked up a ramp made of glowing stones, "do all humans look different from each other?" "Yes, we do," Jake said. "Every human is unique. We have different colors of skin and hair, different heights, different faces." "How wonderful," the princess said. and Jake could hear real excitement in her voice. "And do you all think different thoughts as well?" Lisa stepped forward to help with the conversation. "Yes, Princess. Every human has their own ideas and opinions. We don't always agree with each other." Princess Zarathis stopped walking and stared at Lisa. "You don't agree? But how do you make decisions? How do you know what is right?" "We talk about it," Lisa said. "We share our ideas and try to find the best answer together." The other Velthari in the group made soft sounds that Jake thought might be surprise or shock. One of them, an older Velthari with darker light, stepped forward. "Princess," he said, in a careful voice, "perhaps these questions can wait until the formal ceremony." But Princess Zarathis waved her hand dismissively. "I am more interested in learning about our guests than following old customs, Council Member Thexnar." Jake exchanged glances with his team. This was already different from what they had expected. Usually, first contact meetings were very formal and followed strict rules. But Princess Zarathis seemed more interested in having a real conversation than doing a ceremony. They reached the top of the Crystal Palace, and Jake gasped at what he saw. The whole city spread out below them, with its glowing buildings and floating bridges. In the distance, he could see forests of trees that looked like they were made of silver and gold. The 3 moons hung low in the sky, casting rainbow shadows across everything. "It's beautiful," Amy said softly. "Thank you," Princess Zarathis said. "But tell me about your world. What does Earth look like?" For the next hour, Jake and his team described Earth to the princess and her advisors. They talked about blue oceans and green forests, about snow-covered mountains and hot deserts. They showed pictures of different animals and plants, of human cities and human art. Princess Zarathis listened to everything with intense interest, but Jake noticed that her advisors looked more and more uncomfortable as the conversation went on. Finally, Council Member Thexnar interrupted. "Princess, we should begin the formal welcome ceremony now," he said firmly. Princess Zarathis looked annoyed, but she nodded. "Very well, Captain Morrison, we will have time to talk more later, but for now, we must follow our traditions." As they were led to a great hall filled with hundreds of Velthari, Jake wondered what he had gotten himself and his crew into. This princess was clearly not like the other aliens they had met in their imagination. She was curious, independent, and very interested in human ways. Jake had a feeling that this first contact mission was going to be much more complicated than anyone back on Earth had expected. 3 weeks had passed since the USS Horizon landed on Velthara. Jake Morrison sat in his temporary quarters in the Crystal Palace, writing his daily report back to Earth. The cultural exchange program was going better than anyone had hoped, but there were things happening that made him worry. Lisa Harper spent most of her time with Princess Zarathis, working on language projects. The princess wanted to learn English perfectly, not just use the translation machines. Every day they sat together in the palace library, a room filled with floating books made of light. Lisa would teach her new words, and the princess would ask endless questions about what they really meant. "Today she asked me about the word freedom," Lisa told Jake over dinner. "I tried to explain it, but she looked confused. She said her people don't have a word that means the same thing." Jake put down his fork and looked at her. "What do you mean they don't have a word for freedom?" "She said that every Velthari knows their place and their purpose from the day they're born," Lisa explained. "They don't choose what to do with their lives. The Council of Resonance decides everything based on their energy patterns." Meanwhile, Ryan Cole was having his own strange experiences with the Velthari guards. Instead of using weapons like guns or swords, they fought by controlling energy with their minds. They could create shields of light and throw balls of fire from their hands. "It's incredible, Captain," Ryan said during their evening meeting. "They're all exactly the same skill level. Not one of them is better or worse than the others. When I asked how they train, they said they don't. They just know how to fight from birth." Dr. Amy Foster had been studying Velthari biology and society. What she found was even more strange. "Every Velthari has the same basic personality," she reported. "They're all calm, logical, and completely focused on their assigned duties, except for Princess Zarathis. What's different about her? Jake asked. She asks questions that have nothing to do with her royal duties, Amy said. She wants to know about human emotions, about why we make art, about how we choose who to love. The other Velthari think these questions are pointless. Jake nodded. He had noticed the same thing. During official meetings, Princess Zarathis would ask about human music or poetry, while her advisors tried to discuss trade agreements and technology sharing. She seemed fascinated by things that had no practical purpose. The next morning, Princess Zarathis visited Jake in the human quarters. She looked around at their simple rooms with great interest. You each have your own space, she observed, and you've arranged your belongings differently from each other. That's right, Jake said. Everyone likes different things. She picked up a small photo from Lisa's desk. It showed Lisa with her family back on Earth. Her parents, 2 brothers and a sister, all laughing together at a picnic. These are Lisa's relatives? The princess asked. Yes, that's her family. Princess Zarathis stared at the picture for a long time. They look happy together, but they're not identical. How do they know they belong together? Jake sat down and tried to explain. Human families aren't assigned by the government or chosen for practical reasons. People fall in love and decide to be together. They have children who grow up to make their own choices about life. Fall in love? Princess Zarathis repeated the word slowly. This is when 2 humans choose each other for emotional reasons, not logical ones? Exactly. The princess was quiet for several minutes, still looking at the photo. Finally, she said, I am to be bonded with Lord Velteron in 6 months. The council chose him because our energy patterns will create the strongest offspring. I have never spoken to him about anything except official duties. Jake felt sorry for her. What would happen if you refused? Princess Zarathis looked shocked. Refused? I cannot refuse. It is my purpose, my destiny. The good of our people depends on following the patterns the council has established. That afternoon, Princess Zarathis asked Lisa to show her human music. Lisa played recordings of everything from classical symphonies to rock songs to folk music from different countries. The princess listened to each one with intense concentration. This one sounds sad, she said when Lisa played a blues song about lost love. That's right. The musician is singing about someone who left him. But why would someone create something that makes others feel sadness? Lisa thought about how to explain. Sometimes expressing sadness helps us feel better. And when other people hear it, they know they're not alone in feeling that way. Princess Zarathis was quiet again, thinking hard. Velthari music is designed to create harmony and peace. We would never make music that causes uncomfortable emotions. But don't you ever feel sad or angry or lonely? Lisa asked gently. The princess looked surprised by the question. Sometimes I feel something I cannot name, like an empty space inside me that should be filled with something, but I don't know what it is. Over the following days, Jake noticed changes in Princess Zarathis. She started asking more personal questions about the human crew members. She wanted to know about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. She asked Amy about her decision to become a scientist and Ryan about why he chose to be a soldier instead of staying home on Earth. I never chose anything, she confided to Jake one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. Every day of my life has been planned by others. When I wake up, I know exactly what I will do until I go to sleep. Tomorrow will be the same as today, and the day after will be the same as tomorrow. That sounds very secure, Jake said carefully. You never have to worry about making the wrong choice. But I also never have the joy of making the right choice, Princess Zarathis replied. When I watch you humans, I see something in your faces that I don't understand. You seem alive in a way that Velthari are not. Jake didn't know what to say to that. He was beginning to understand that the Velthari society was more different from human society than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just that they were aliens with different technology and different bodies. They had given up something that humans considered essential, the right to choose their own path in life. Late that night, Jake found Princess Zarathis standing alone on one of the palace balconies, looking up at the stars. Do you know which star is your sun? she asked when she heard him approach. Jake looked up and found the familiar constellation that contained Earth's solar system. That one there, the bright one in the center. So far away, she said softly. Tell me, Captain Morrison, are there other worlds with people like you? People who choose their own destinies? We don't know, Jake admitted. You're the first intelligent aliens we've ever met. Princess Zarathis was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked a question that surprised him. Are you lonely, being so far from your kind? Jake thought about it. Sometimes. But I chose to come on this mission. I wanted to explore and meet new people. That choice makes the loneliness worth it. Choice. She repeated the word like she was tasting something new. Such a simple word, but it seems to mean everything to humans. As Jake returned to his quarters that night, he realized that this cultural exchange was changing Princess Zarathis in ways that might not be safe for her. She was beginning to question things that her society had never allowed anyone to question, and Jake wasn't sure what would happen when her people realized how much she was changing. The next morning brought news that made everything more complicated. Council member Thexnar announced that the formal bonding ceremony between Princess Zarathis and Lord Veltarin would happen sooner than planned. Instead of 6 months away, it would take place in just 2 weeks. When Princess Zarathis heard the news, Jake saw something in her eyes that he had never seen in a Velthari before. For just a moment, she looked afraid. The news about the early bonding ceremony changed everything on Velthara. Princess Zarathis became quiet and distant. She still met with the human crew members for their cultural exchange sessions, but Jake could see that her mind was somewhere else. Her usual bright curiosity seemed dimmed, like a light that was slowly going out. Lisa tried to cheer her up by showing her more human art and music, but the princess barely responded. Ryan offered to teach her some Earth games, thinking physical activity might help, but she politely refused. Even Dr. Amy's fascinating stories about different life forms across the galaxy couldn't hold her attention. She's shutting down, Amy told Jake privately. It's like she's preparing herself to become just like all the other Velthari. Jake watched Princess Zarathis from across the palace dining hall during the evening meal. She sat perfectly straight, ate her food without really tasting it, and answered questions from her advisors with simple yes or no responses. She looked like a different person than the curious, lively alien who had bombarded them with questions just days before. After dinner, Jake made a decision. Instead of returning to his quarters, he went to find Princess Zarathis. He had noticed that she often went to the observation deck at night to look at the stars. Tonight was no different. She stood alone at the wide crystal window, gazing out at the 3 moons of Velthara. In the distance, Jake could see Earth's sun, just a bright point of light among thousands of others. Princess, Jake said softly so he wouldn't startle her. She turned around and Jake was shocked by what he saw. Her eyes, which usually changed colors like the aurora, were now a dull gray. The light that made up her body seemed dimmer, less alive. Captain Morrison, she said in a flat voice, you should be resting. Tomorrow we have more cultural exchange activities planned. I'm not here for official business, Jake said. He walked over to stand beside her at the window. I'm here as a friend. The word friend seemed to surprise her. A little bit of color came back to her eyes. Friend, she repeated. I have learned this word from Lisa. It means someone you choose to care about, not someone assigned to you. By duty. That's right. They stood together in comfortable silence for a while, looking out at the stars. Finally, Princess Zarathis spoke again. In 2 weeks I will bond with Lord Veltarin. After that, my purpose will be to produce offspring that will serve the Velthari people. I will move to the breeding chambers and live according to the patterns the Council has determined will be most beneficial for future generations. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. That doesn't sound like living. That sounds like existing. What is the difference? She asked. But Jake could hear in her voice that she already knew the answer. Living means having experiences, making choices, learning and growing and changing, Jake said. Existing is just going through the motions without any real purpose or joy. Princess Zarathis nodded slowly. For weeks now I have been watching you humans. You argue with each other. You make mistakes. You feel pain and sadness. But you also feel happiness and excitement and love. You create things that serve no practical purpose except to make you feel good. You choose to be kind to each other, even when there is no benefit to yourselves. That's what makes life worth living, Jake said. But it also makes life dangerous, Princess Zarathis pointed out. Emotions lead to conflict. Individual choices can harm the group. Art and music and love don't help society function efficiently. Jake looked at her carefully. Is that what you've been told, or is that what you believe? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. 3 months ago I would have said it was obviously true. But now, she gestured toward the stars where Earth's sun shone. Now I see you humans, and you seem more alive than anyone I have ever known. They talked for hours that night. Jake told her about his childhood on Earth, about choosing to join the space program, about the fear and excitement he felt when he first left his home planet. Princess Zarathis listened to every word with hungry attention. I have never felt fear or excitement, she admitted. The council says these emotions are inefficient and dangerous, but when you describe them, they sound wonderful. Even fear? Jake asked. Fear means you care about something enough to worry about losing it, she said thoughtfully. I have never cared about anything that much. As the weeks passed, their nighttime conversations became a routine. Princess Zarathis would finish her royal duties for the day, then meet Jake on the observation deck. She asked him about everything: human families, human dreams, human mistakes and regrets. Tell me about making a wrong choice, she said one night. Jake thought about it. When I was young, I wanted to be a musician instead of a space captain. I spent years trying to make music that people would want to hear, but I wasn't very good at it, and I was often hungry and lonely. So it was a mistake? At the time, it felt like one. But those years taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. They taught me about failure and perseverance and what really mattered to me. Without that experience, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Princess Zarathis absorbed this information like a plant absorbing sunlight. So even wrong choices can be valuable? Sometimes they're the most valuable choices of all. 1 week before the bonding ceremony, Princess Zarathis seemed different again. But this time, instead of becoming dimmer, she seemed brighter. Her eyes sparkled with their old colors, and she moved with more energy than Jake had seen in weeks. That night, she was already waiting on the observation deck when Jake arrived. She stood looking out at the stars, but this time her posture was straight and determined, not sad and resigned. Captain Morrison, she said without turning around. I have been thinking about our conversations, about choice and fear and what makes life worth living. Oh? Jake moved to stand beside her. She turned to face him, and Jake could see something new in her expression. It was resolve, mixed with something that looked almost like hope. I have a question for you, she said, but it is not about human culture or Earth customs. What is it? Princess Zarathis looked directly into his eyes. Are you alone, human? Jake frowned, confused. Right now? No, you're here with me. No, she said patiently. Not physically alone. I mean, are you alone in the universe? Is your species the only one that chooses its own path? Jake began to understand what she was really asking. You mean, are humans the only intelligent species that has individual freedom? Yes. Her voice was barely above a whisper. In all the galaxy, with all the stars and planets and possibilities, are you the only people who get to decide what to do with your lives? Jake thought about it seriously. We don't know. We haven't met any other intelligent species except you. But I hope we're not alone. I believe that consciousness and choice might be possible for any thinking being. Princess Zarathis was quiet for a very long time, staring out at the vast field of stars. When she finally spoke, her voice was full of something Jake had never heard from a Velthari before: determination. What if I told you that your people are not the only ones with the potential for choice, she said. What if I told you that my people once had the same freedom you have, but we gave it up long ago? Jake's heart started beating faster. I'd say that sounds like something worth investigating. Princess Zarathis smiled, and it was the first real smile Jake had ever seen on Velthara. It transformed her entire face, making her look young and alive and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with her glowing alien features. Then I think it's time I told you some things about Velthari history, she said. Things that the Council of Resonance doesn't want anyone to remember. As she began to speak, Jake realized that everything they thought they knew about the Velthari was about to change. And he had a feeling that Princess Zarathis was about to make a choice that would change not just her own life, but the future of her entire species. Princess Zarathis led Jake through the Crystal Palace to a part of the building he had never seen before. They walked down long hallways lined with glowing stones, past rooms filled with ancient artifacts, until they reached a heavy door marked with symbols that hurt Jake's eyes to look at directly. This is the Archive of Forbidden Memory, Princess Zarathis whispered. Only members of the royal family are allowed to enter, and we are forbidden to share what we find here. Then why are you bringing me here? Jake asked. Because I think the time for keeping these secrets is over, she said. She pressed her hand against the door and it opened with a sound like breaking glass. Inside was a room filled with floating crystals of different sizes and colors. Each crystal pulsed with its own light, and Jake could somehow sense that they contained information, memories, histories, records of the past. These are the true records of Velthari civilization, Princess Zarathis explained. The Council tells our people that we have always lived according to the resonance patterns, that individual choice and emotion are alien concepts that would destroy our society. But that is not true. She walked to a large blue crystal in the center of the room and placed both hands on it. Suddenly the crystal began to glow brighter and images appeared in the air around them. Jake gasped as he saw what looked like ancient Velthari, but they were different from the ones he had met. These ancient aliens laughed and cried and argued with each other. They created art that was wild and beautiful and completely individual. They fell in love and had families based on choice rather than genetic planning. This is how we used to be, Princess Zarathis said softly. Thousands of years ago, Velthari were individuals just like humans. We had different personalities, different dreams, different ways of looking at the universe. The images in the air changed, showing great cities full of Velthari creating music and art and literature. They built amazing structures that served no purpose except to be beautiful. They explored space not for practical reasons, but simply because they were curious about what they might find. What happened? Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer would be tragic. War, Princess Zarathis said simply. Not war with other species, but war among ourselves. All those individual choices, all those different opinions and desires, eventually led to conflict. Groups of Velthari with different ideas about how society should work began fighting each other. The images showed the beautiful cities burning, Velthari using their energy powers to destroy rather than create. Jake watched families torn apart, artworks destroyed, entire populations fleeing from battles they never wanted to be part of. The war lasted for centuries, Princess Zarathis continued. By the time it ended, our civilization was nearly destroyed. The survivors were so traumatized by what individual choice had led to that they created the Council of Resonance to make sure it could never happen again. They eliminated free will to prevent conflict, Jake said, understanding. Yes. They developed techniques to suppress the parts of our brains that create individual personality and emotion. Every new generation was born with these abilities turned off. Within a few hundred years, all Velthari thought and acted exactly the same way. There was no more conflict because there were no more different opinions to conflict about. Jake stared at the images, which now showed modern Velthara with its perfect crystal cities and its identical inhabitants. But you're different, he pointed out. You ask questions and have opinions and feelings. Princess Zarathis nodded. Members of the royal family are different. We need some individual thinking ability to make decisions for the good of the people. But we're trained from birth to never let those abilities go too far, to always put the collective good above our personal desires. She moved to another crystal, this one glowing with soft green light. When she touched it, Jake saw images of Velthari brain scans and genetic charts. Dr. Amy Foster has been studying our biology, Princess Zarathis said. What she discovered is that the capacity for individual thought and emotion wasn't removed from our people. It was just turned off, like a switch. The neural pathways are still there, dormant but intact. Jake felt his heart racing. You mean all Velthari could potentially think and feel like individuals again? In theory, yes, but the Council would never allow it. They believe that individual consciousness is a disease that nearly destroyed our species once, and would do so again. Over the next few days, Princess Zarathis showed Jake more secrets from the archives. He learned that the Velthari had encountered dozens of other intelligent species over the centuries, and all of them followed some form of collective programming. Some were controlled by hive minds, others by rigid social castes, still others by genetic imperatives that left no room for personal choice. Every species we've met gave up individual freedom in exchange for peace and stability, Princess Zarathis explained. Until now, I thought that was the natural way of things. I thought humans were strange and dangerous for being different. And now, Jake asked, now I think humans might be the only species in the galaxy that has kept what all the others threw away. Meanwhile, Ryan Cole was discovering his own disturbing truths about Velthari society. While practicing combat techniques with the guards, he noticed that they never improved or learned new things. They fought exactly the same way every time, with exactly the same level of skill. It's not natural, he told Jake. Humans get better at things with practice. We learn from our mistakes and adapt our techniques, but these guards are like machines running the same program over and over. Dr. Amy Foster had been doing secret scans of Velthari brain patterns with equipment from the USS Horizon. What she found confirmed everything Princess Zarathis had shown them in the archives. Look at this, she said, showing Jake the scan results on her tablet. These are the brain patterns of a typical Velthari worker. The image showed a brain with several areas completely inactive, as if they had been deliberately shut down. And this, she continued, bringing up another scan, is Princess Zarathis. Her brain pattern showed the same inactive areas but with small flickers of activity, like lights trying to turn on. She's changing, Amy said excitedly. The more time she spends with us, the more active those dormant areas become. Our conversations and interactions are literally rewiring her brain. But Lisa Harper discovered something that made all of them afraid. While working on translation protocols, she intercepted communications between Council member Thexnar and other Velthari leaders. They're planning to end the cultural exchange program early, she told Jake urgently. They think human influence is becoming dangerous. They want us to leave Velthara immediately after Princess Zarathis's bonding ceremony. Do they know what we've learned? Jake asked. I don't think so. But they've noticed changes in Princess Zarathis's behavior. They're calling it individual contamination, and they're worried it might spread to other Velthari. That night, Jake met Princess Zarathis on the observation deck for what might be their last private conversation. The bonding ceremony was only 3 days away, and after that, everything would change. I've been thinking about what you told me, Jake said, about your people's history and the choice they made to give up individual freedom. And what do you think? She asked. I think they made that choice out of fear, Jake said honestly. They were so afraid of conflict and pain that they gave up everything that makes life meaningful. Princess Zarathis was quiet for a long time. But what if they were right? She finally said. What if individual choice really does lead to destruction and suffering? Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about Earth and all the wars and conflicts in human history. It's true that humans fight and argue and make mistakes, he said, but we also love and create and help each other. We explore the universe and make beautiful art and choose to be better than we were yesterday. Yes, freedom is dangerous, but the alternative is not really living at all. Princess Zarathis turned to face him, and Jake could see tears in her eyes. The first tears he had ever seen from a Velthari, "I don't want to spend my life as a breeding machine in the crystal chambers," she whispered. "I want to choose my own path even if it's the wrong path. I want to feel fear and joy and love even if they hurt. I want to be alive." "Then you have a choice to make," Jake said gently. "I know," she said. "The question is, do I have the courage to make it?" As Jake returned to his quarters that night, he knew that in 3 days, Princess Zarathus would have to decide not just her own future, but possibly the future of her entire species. And he wasn't sure what he and his crew should do if she chose to break free from thousands of years of Velthari tradition. The morning of the bonding ceremony arrived with unusual activity throughout the Crystal Palace. Hundreds of Velthari from across the moon had come to witness Princess Zarathus join with Lord Velterran. Jake and his crew were given seats of honor in the great ceremony hall, a massive room with walls that seemed to stretch up forever. Jake watched Princess Zarathus as she prepared for the ritual. She wore a dress made of flowing light that changed colors as she moved. Her face was calm and expressionless, just like every other Velthari in the room. But Jake could see something in her eyes that the others couldn't, a spark of determination that she was trying hard to hide. Lord Velterran stood at the center of the hall. He was tall and impressive, with bright golden light flowing through his body. His energy patterns matched Princess Zarathus perfectly, just as the council had planned. When they bonded, their offspring would be genetically perfect according to Velthari science. Council member Thexnar began the ceremony with ancient words about duty and service to the collective good. He spoke about how individual desires must always be secondary to the needs of the species. Jake noticed that Princess Zarathus's hands were shaking slightly, though her face remained calm. "Princess Zarathus," Council member Thexnar said, "do you accept this bonding for the good of all Velthari?" This was the moment. Jake held his breath as Princess Zarathus stepped forward. The entire hall was silent, waiting for her to say the ritual words that would seal her fate forever. Instead, she said something that shocked everyone present. "No." The word echoed through the hall like thunder. Hundreds of Velthari turned to stare at her with expressions of confusion and horror. Lord Velterran took a step backward as if he had been struck. "I do not accept this bonding," Princess Zarathus said in a clear, strong voice. "I choose a different path for my life." Council member Thexnar's glowing form flickered with what Jake realized was panic. "Princess, you cannot refuse. This bonding was determined by the resonance patterns. It is your destiny." "Destiny is what we make for ourselves," Princess Zarathus replied. "I have learned this from the humans. I choose to decide my own future." The reaction in the hall was immediate and chaotic. Velthari, who had been perfectly calm and ordered just moments before, began moving restlessly, making sounds of distress and confusion. Some of them were holding their heads as if in pain. "She's triggering something in them," Dr. Amy Foster whispered to Jake. "Her act of defiance is activating their dormant neural pathways." More Velthari began showing signs of distress. A few of them were asking questions that Jake had never heard from any alien except Princess Zarathus. "What if I don't want my assigned role? What if I want to choose something else?" Council member Thexnar raised his arms, trying to restore order. "This is the contamination we feared," he announced. "The human influence has corrupted our princess and threatens to spread chaos throughout our society." But it was too late. The awakening had begun, and it was spreading like wildfire through the assembled Velthari. Across the hall, individuals were beginning to act as individuals for the first time in their lives. Some were crying, others were laughing. Many were looking around with wonder, as if seeing their world clearly for the first time. "Guards!" Council member Thexnar shouted. "Arrest the humans! They have committed an act of cultural warfare against our people." The Velthari guards moved toward Jake and his crew, but they moved slowly and uncertainly. Jake could see confusion in their faces as their own suppressed consciousness began to stir. "Stop," Princess Zarathus commanded, and Jake was amazed by the authority in her voice. "The humans have done nothing except show us what we used to be. If anyone is to be arrested, it should be the council that stole our freedom thousands of years ago." She turned to address the crowd of awakening Velthari. I have seen the truth in the archive of forbidden memory. We were once individuals like the humans, with the right to choose our own paths. The Council took that from us, claiming it was for our own good. But look around you. Are we better for having given up our souls? A young Velthari near the front of the crowd stepped forward. I feel something I have never felt before, she said hesitantly. Is this what humans call hope? Yes, Princess Zarathus said gently. And that is only the beginning. Council member Thexnar made one final attempt to regain control. Princess, if you continue this madness, you will be exiled from Velthara forever. You will lose your title, your home, everything you have ever known. Princess Zarathus looked at him calmly. I would rather be free and homeless than comfortable. And enslaved. She turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, I formally request asylum aboard your ship. I wish to leave Velthara and explore the galaxy as an individual, not as a predetermined function of the collective. Jake felt the weight of the moment. Granting asylum to Princess Zarathus could destroy the diplomatic relationship between humans and Velthari forever. Earth had spent years preparing for this first contact mission, and it could all be ruined by this single decision. But as he looked into Princess Zarathus's eyes, Jake saw something that made the choice easy. He saw courage, hope, and the spark of true freedom that no government or council should have the right to extinguish. Request granted, Jake said firmly. Princess Zarathus, you are welcome aboard the USS Horizon. Council member Thexanar's light flared with anger. This is an act of war against the Velthari people. You will leave our system immediately and never return. Understood, Jake said. But before we go, Princess Zarathus has something she wants to share with your people. Princess Zarathus moved to the center of the hall, where the bonding ceremony should have taken place. Instead of joining with Lord Velterran, she activated a communication device that would broadcast her message across all of Velthara. My people, she began. For thousands of years we have lived as shadows of what we once were. We gave up our individuality out of fear, and in doing so, we gave up our humanity. But it is not too late to reclaim what was lost. She activated a holographic display that showed images from the archive of forbidden memory. The ancient Velthari who lived and loved and chose their own destinies. This is who we really are, she said. Not perfect machines following predetermined patterns, but living beings with the right to make our own mistakes and create our own successes. The neural pathways for individual thought still exist in all of us. They can be reactivated. We can choose to be free. Across Velthara, Velthari stopped their daily routines to listen to their princess. Jake could see on the communication monitors that the awakening was spreading to every city and settlement on the moon. For the first time in millennia, individual Velthari were asking questions, expressing opinions, and making choices. Council member Thexnar tried to cut off the broadcast, but other Velthari stopped him. Some of them were guards who had been programmed to obey the council without question, but they were beginning to question everything. You have 1 hour to leave our system, Council member Thexnar said to Jake with defeated anger. We'll be ready, Jake replied. As the USS Horizon prepared for departure, Princess Zarathus stood on the bridge looking back at Velthara through the view screen. The crystal cities were still beautiful, but now they were filled with individuals discovering what it meant to be truly alive. Do you regret your choice? Jake asked her. Princess Zarathus smiled, an expression that was becoming more natural for her every day. How can I regret choosing freedom? Even if I can never go home again, I have something my people threw away long ago, the right to decide who I want to become. Lisa Harper looked up from her communication station with excitement. Captain, we're receiving messages from all over Velthara. Young Velthari are organizing into groups to study the historical archives. They're calling themselves the Freedom Movement, and they're asking for more information about human culture and individual rights. And this is just the beginning, Dr. Amy Foster added. The neural reactivation process is irreversible once it starts. Within a generation, the Velthari could be as individually diverse as humans. As the USS Horizon left the Kepler 442 system, Jake reflected on what had happened. They had come to establish diplomatic relations with an alien species, but instead they had helped spark a revolution of consciousness that would change an entire civilization. Princess Zarathis joined him at the observation window as Earth's sun grew brighter ahead of them. "I asked you once if humans were alone in the universe," she said. "Now I know the answer." "What's that?" Jake asked. "You were never alone," she said with a smile that lit up her entire being. "You were just waiting for the rest of us to remember who we used to be." Behind them, reports continued to come in from Velthara. The awakening was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Velthari across the moon were choosing their own names, forming their own relationships, creating art and music for the first time in thousands of years. The Council of Resonance was losing control as more and more individuals decided to think for themselves. It would take time, Jake knew. There would be confusion and conflict as an entire species learned to be individuals again. But there would also be joy and creativity and love and all the messy, wonderful things that made life worth living. As Princess Zarathis had said, they were not alone.